First contact gone wrong. The stellar exploration vessel Harmony drifted silently through the void, its crystalline hull reflecting the distant starlight. Captain Zarek stood on the observation deck, his 4 eyes scanning the darkness ahead. The ship's mission was simple: chart the unexplored regions beyond the Confederacy's borders. For 3 cycles, they had mapped countless star systems without incident. That was about to change. Captain called Senior Sensor Officer Tylera, her bioluminescent patches pulsing with anxiety. "We're detecting an anomaly at the edge of our scanning range." Zarek moved to the main console, his feet making no sound on the organic deck. The Harmony, like all Confederacy vessels, was grown rather than built, its systems an intricate blend of biological and technological components. "Show me." The holographic display materialized before them, showing a massive energy signature unlike anything in their database. It moved with purpose, its trajectory suggesting intelligent control rather than natural phenomena. "Analysis?" Zarek asked, his secondary hearts beginning to beat faster. "The energy output is impossible," Tylera responded, her tendrils writhing in confusion. "It's generating more power than our entire exploration fleet combined. And it's accelerating." The bridge crew worked in tense silence, their specialized organs sensing the growing unease in the recycled air. The Harmony was the most advanced exploration vessel in the Confederacy's fleet, but its defensive capabilities were minimal. They relied on stealth and diplomacy, not weapons. "New contact." Tylera's voice cracked. "The anomaly just split?" "No, something emerged from it." The holographic display updated, showing a massive vessel materializing from what they now recognized as some form of faster-than-light transit. The ship was unlike anything in Confederate records. Where their vessels were smooth and organic, this one was angular and artificial. Where they used crystalline matrices and biological computers, this vessel bristled with metal and plasma conduits. "Size comparison," Zarek demanded. It's 3 times our length, Captain. The hull composition is unknown, but it's dense, extremely dense. I'm detecting energy signatures throughout its structure that suggest weapon emplacements. Many of them." Zarek felt his chromatophores pale involuntarily. The Confederacy was a peaceful alliance of species that had evolved beyond warfare centuries ago. Their ships carried only defensive shields and minimal point defense systems for dealing with space debris. This vessel was clearly built for a single purpose: war. "Captain," Communications Officer Ventu interrupted, her respiratory sacs inflating with stress. "We're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast on all frequencies." "A warning?" Zarek asked, preparing to order an emergency retreat. "No, sir. It's in perfect Confederate standard. They're requesting communication." The bridge fell silent. The unknown vessel, clearly capable of destroying them with ease, wanted to talk. It made no tactical sense. "Put it on the main display," Zarek ordered, straightening his posture. First contact protocols were clear, even in situations like this. The holographic display shifted, and the crew collectively gasped. The being on the screen was unlike anything they had encountered in their centuries of exploration. It stood upright like many species, but its features were alien in their familiarity. 2 eyes, not 4 or 6. No bioluminescence, no visible secondary organs, just smooth skin and fur concentrated on the top of its head. "Greetings, Confederate vessel," the creature spoke, its voice surprisingly gentle despite its ship's threatening appearance. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Alliance ship Hyperion. We apologize for any alarm our arrival may have caused." Zarek felt his neural pathways freeze. Earth Alliance. Humans. The stories were true. For centuries, there had been rumors in the outer reaches of Confederate space, tales of a species that evolved on a death world, who had mastered the art of warfare before they learned to write. A species that had somehow survived multiple extinction-level events on their homeworld and emerged stronger. a species that had taken to the stars not in search of peace, but ready for war. "I am Captain Zarek of the stellar exploration vessel Harmony," he responded, trying to keep his voice steady. "Your arrival was danger. From whom?" "Not from us," Captain Chen replied, her expression growing darker. "Something is coming, Captain. Something that makes us look peaceful by comparison. We've been fighting it in secret for years, trying to keep it away from populated space. We failed. Now we need your help." Zarek felt his world shift. Humans asking for help. The supposed warriors of the galaxy admitting failure. Before he could respond, Tyler's voice cut through the silence, filled with terror. "Captain." Multiple contacts emerging from subspace. They're everywhere. The holographic display filled with new signatures, hundreds of them, appearing at the edge of their sensor range. They moved like no natural or artificial object should, their patterns chaotic yet purpose. Zarek studied the tactical displays, his 4 eyes taking in the patterns of movement, the way the Void Eaters behaved. "They operate like a biological system," he observed, "like a virus attacking a host." Yes, Chen's excitement was palpable. "That's exactly what we think. But our technology is too rigid, too artificial to properly counter them. Your ships, though, they're alive in a way ours aren't. They can adapt, evolve." The implication struck Zarek like a physical blow. "You think we could develop a biological defense against them? Some way to inoculate space itself?" "It's possible," Chen nodded, "but we need to act fast. The swarm approaching us now is larger than any we've encountered before. They're not just random attacks anymore. They're organizing." As if to emphasize her point, the sensor displays lit up with new warnings. The Void Eaters were accelerating, their chaotic movements becoming more coordinated, more purposeful. "How long?" Zarek asked, his secondary hearts racing. "At their current speed. 2 days before they reached the nearest Confederate colony. We've already called for reinforcements from the Earth Alliance fleet, but they might not arrive in time," Zarek finished. He looked at his crew, seeing the fear in their postures, but also something else. Determination. Purpose. The Confederacy had evolved beyond warfare, yes, but they had never lost their drive to protect life in all its forms. Their ships were designed to explore, to study, to preserve. Perhaps that was exactly what was needed now. "The Harmony's laboratories are yours, Captain Chen," Zarek declared. "We'll contact Confederate High Command and request all available research vessels. If there's a biological solution to this threat, we'll find it." Chen's relief was visible, but her expression remained serious. "Thank you, Captain. But you should know, even if we succeed, even if we find a way to stop them, there will be losses. The Void Eaters don't leave survivors." "Perhaps," Zarek agreed, his chromatophores shifting to the deep blue of resolve. "But as you said, extinction is not an option. Not for humanity, and not for us." The Harmony's organic hull seemed to pulse with new energy as its crew began their preparations. In the distance, visible through the observation windows, the Hyperion maintained its guard position, its weapons ready to buy them the time they needed. 2 species, separated by their very nature, united against a threat to all existence. The peace-loving Confederacy and warrior humanity, each bringing their unique strengths to the coming battle. They had 2 days to find a solution. 2 days before the Void Eaters reached populated space. 2 days to prove that life, in all its forms, could stand against the encroaching darkness. The battle begins. Time had run out. The combined fleet of Confederate and human vessels hung in space like a steel and crystal barrier before the approaching void. Captain Zarek stood on the Harmony's bridge, watching as the last ships took their positions. In 48 hours, they had accomplished what should have taken months. The Harmony's laboratories had worked without pause, combining Confederate biotechnology with human warfare expertise. Every surviving ship in range had been modified with the experimental defense system they'd developed. Whether it would be enough remained to be seen. Status report. Zarek commanded, his voice steady despite the tension thrumming through the ship's living hull. Confederate vessels report ready. Tylra responded from her station. Biological shields are operating at maximum capacity. The new symbiotic defense network is online and stable. Human fleet confirms position, Ventu added. The Hyperion and its battle group are formed up around our flanks. They're placing themselves between us and the primary attack vector. Captain Chen's voice came through the command channel. We're your shield wall, Harmony. Focus on coordinating the defense network. We'll keep them off you as long as we can. The Void Eaters approached like a wave of living darkness, their forms distorting the very space around them. The sensors showed hundreds of them, perhaps thousands, moving with terrible purpose toward the assembled fleet. They've never gathered in these numbers before. Chen's voice was grim. They know we're up to something. They're adapting. The first attacks came without warning. Void Eaters accelerated suddenly, their forms stretching impossibly as they struck at the human vessels. The Hyperion's weapons blazed, cutting through space with energies that disrupted the creature's cohesion. Other human ships joined the battle, their coordinated fire creating patterns of light against the darkness. But for every Void Eater they dispersed, two more took its place. The creatures were learning, moving in ways that made them harder to target, combining their forms to create larger, more resilient entities. Confederate vessels, initiate Defense Protocol Alpha, Zarek ordered. Activate the biological shields. The Confederate ship's crystalline hulls began to pulse with bioluminescent energy. The new defenses they'd developed were a fusion of organic technology and human ingenuity. Living shields that could adapt and evolve in real time, powered by the same fundamental forces the Void Eaters tried to disrupt. A massive Void Eater struck the Harmony shields directly. Instead of the usual catastrophic failure, the shields rippled and pulsed, organic algorithms adjusting their frequency to match the attack. The creature recoiled, seemingly confused by its failure to feed. It's working. Tylra exclaimed. The biological shields are holding. They're actually learning from each attack, growing stronger. Her words cut off as a section of the human battle line erupted in silent explosions. 3 destroyers, their conventional shields finally overwhelmed, were torn apart by a coordinated Void Eater assault. Hyperion to Harmony. Chen's voice was strained. We can't hold them much longer. Whatever you're going to do with that defense network, do it now. Zarek looked to his science officer. Begin the sequence. Channel everything we have into the network. The Confederate ships began to pulse in unison, their biological shields synchronizing into a single vast organism. Energy flowed between vessels through quantum-entangled pathways, creating a web of living light that spread through the battlefield. The Void Eaters reacted immediately, drawn to this new source of energy. They swarmed toward the network, their forms twisting with hungry anticipation. They're taking the bait, Chen observed. All human vessels fall back behind the Confederate line. Prepare to amplify their broadcast on my mark. The network pulsed brighter as the Void Eaters made contact. But instead of consuming the energy, they found themselves caught in it. The living shields weren't just defending. They were reaching out, attempting to communicate with the creatures on their own level. Remarkable, Tylra whispered, watching her readings. The network. It's not just stopping them. It's trying to understand them, to connect with them. Through the network, they began to receive impressions, alien thoughts, and sensations from the Void Eaters. They weren't simply mindless consumers. They were lost, driven by a hunger they couldn't control, searching for something they couldn't name. Now, Chen commanded, full power to the network. Human ships added their energy to the Confederate network, their more conventional technology amplifying the biological signals. The Void Eaters writhed in space, caught between their hunger and the first real contact they'd experienced since emerging from deep space. For a moment, it seemed to be working. The Void Eaters' chaotic movements began to slow, their forms becoming more stable as the network's influence spread through their ranks. Then everything went wrong. A massive surge of energy rippled through the network as the largest Void Eaters suddenly merged, forming a singular entity of impossible size. The combined creature's hunger overwhelmed the network's attempts at communication, turning the connection back against the fleet. Emergency disconnect. Zarek ordered as ships began to lose power, their energy drawn into the hostile entity. All vessels, sever your connection to the network. But it was too late. The damage was done. The Harmony's organic system screamed in protest as the massive Void Eater began to feed, not just on energy now, but on the very essence of their biological technology. Fall back. Chen's voice cut through the chaos. All ships, emergency retreat. We need to regroup and... The transmission cut off as the Hyperion took a direct hit, its hull crackling with entropic energy. The great human warship, designed to fight this very enemy, began to break apart. The battle had become a rout. The combined fleet's greatest advantage had been turned against them, and now they faced a threat more powerful than ever before. As the Harmony systems failed one by one, Zarek watched the massive Void Eater grow stronger, feeding on the very defenses they had created to stop it. They had tried to bridge the gap between organic and void, between life and entropy. They had failed, and now both humanity and the Confederacy would pay the price for their hubris. The final gambit. The remnants of the combined fleet limped through space, running on emergency power. The Harmony's organic hull was scared and dying in places, its living systems struggling to regenerate after the devastating battle. They had lost a third of their ships, and the rest were damaged to varying degrees. The Hyperion, once proud and powerful, now drifted in the middle of their formation, its hull held together by emergency force fields and Confederate biorepairs. Captain Zarek and Captain Chen stood in the Harmony's emergency command center, their crews working frantically to restore critical systems. The main bridge had been too damaged to use, its organic computing nodes still recovering from the psychic backlash of the failed network. The merged entity is following us, Tyler reported, her bioluminescence dim with exhaustion. It's consuming the remains of our lost ships, growing stronger. How long until it reaches populated space? Chen asked, her uniform torn and bloodied from emergency repairs on the Hyperion. At its current speed, less than 10 hours, Ventu answered. We've sent warnings to all Confederate colonies in its path, but evacuation will be impossible in that time frame. Zarek studied the tactical display, his 4 eyes tracking the massive void entity's movement. Something about its behavior had changed after absorbing their biological network. It was no longer just consuming. It was hunting them specifically. It learned from us, he realized aloud. When we tried to communicate, to understand it, it understood us back. Now it knows exactly what we are, what our civilizations contain. We didn't just fail to stop it. We showed it where to find more food. Chen nodded grimly, and we gave it the tools to break down our defenses more efficiently. The biological network may have been a mistake, but it showed us something important. She pointed to the sensor readings. Look at its structure now. It's not just chaos anymore. There's a pattern. The massive void entity had indeed changed. Where before the Void Eaters had been amorphous and random, this combined creature showed signs of organization. The entropy field surrounding it pulsed with a regular rhythm, almost like a heartbeat, Tylra whispered. It's developed a central core, a heart, which means it can be killed. Chen's voice carried the predatory edge that had once terrified the Confederate crew. Now they recognized it as hope. We just need to reach that core. The void field around it is too strong, Zarek countered. None of our weapons can penetrate deep enough. Even if we sacrificed every ship we have left in a concentrated attack, we wouldn't reach it. Then we don't attack from the outside. Chen's expression was deadly serious. We attack from within. The command center fell silent as her meaning sank in. Zarek's chromatophores paled. You're suggesting a suicide run, Chen confirmed. But not just any ship. We need something it wants to consume, something it thinks will make it stronger. She looked at the Harmony's living walls. Something alive. Understanding dawned on Zarek. The Harmony. Our most advanced biological ship. If we could get close enough. We load it with every scrap of antimatter we have left, Chen continued. Rig the organic systems to act as a carrier wave, making it irresistible to the entity. When it tries to absorb the ship, the antimatter detonates inside its core, tile refinished. The blast amplified by its own entropy field. It would tear itself apart from the inside. The plan was desperate, possibly insane, but they had run out of alternatives. Billions of lives in Confederate space hung in the balance, and beyond them, countless more worlds that would fall to the ever-growing void entity. The Harmony would be destroyed, Zarek said quietly. Her consciousness, her memories, everything she is would be lost. The ship was more than just a vessel to them. It was alive, a member of their crew. I know what I'm asking. Chen's voice softened. On Earth, we have old stories of captains going down with their ships. But this is different. This is asking a living being to sacrifice itself. Zarek placed his hand on the organic wall, feeling the ship's pulse. The Harmony was wounded, dying in places, but her consciousness was still strong. Through his captain's neural link, he felt her response. Determination, courage, and something very much like the human concept of duty. She's willing, he announced, but we'll need to evacuate the crew to the remaining ships, and we'll need every gram of antimatter we can salvage. The Hyperion's core is intact, Chen offered. We can transfer it all to the Harmony. My engineers will help modify her systems to channel the blast through her biological matrix for maximum effect. The void entity's pursuit had become a blessing in disguise. It was so focused on catching them that it hadn't diverged to attack any populated systems yet. They had a chance, if they could work fast enough. How long do you need? Zarek asked. 4 hours to transfer the antimatter and make the modifications, Chen calculated. Another hour to evacuate your crew and set up the remote guidance systems. That leaves us less than 5 hours to put everything in position. Zarek's chromatophores shifted to the deep blue of resolve. Time to show this entity that life, whether human or Confederate, doesn't surrender quietly. As the crews began their desperate work, the Harmony's consciousness reached out one last time to her captain. Through their link, Zarek felt not fear, but a quiet pride. She had been built to explore, to learn, to protect life throughout the galaxy. Now she would complete that mission in a way her designers had never imagined. The final battle would not be fought with weapons or shields, but with sacrifice and the unshakable will to protect others. Human determination and Confederate life, united in one last, desperate gambit to save everything they held dear. A new dawn. The Harmony drifted alone in space, her hull pulsing with an irresistible biological energy. Inside her dying form, enough antimatter to shatter a small moon lay waiting, rigged to detonate the moment her systems were breached. From the bridge of the damaged Hyperion, now a safe distance away, Captain Zarek watched his ship make her final journey. The entity has changed course, Tylra reported from her temporary station. It's moving to intercept the Harmony. The bait is working. Captain Chen stood beside Zarek, her presence no longer causing anxiety among the Confederate crew. Together, they had moved beyond their differences, united by sacrifice and shared purpose. Your ship, Chen said quietly. She's magnificent. Even now, even knowing what's coming, her signal is steady. No hesitation. She was always the best of us, Zarek replied, his chromatophores shifting in patterns of pride and grief. Built to explore, choosing to defend, like humans in that way, perhaps. The massive void entity loomed in their view screens, its form now structured and purposeful after absorbing their biological network. The chaotic entropy of the original Void Eaters had been transformed into something worse, organized destruction, directed hunger. Energy spike. Ventu called out. The entity is extending its feeding tendrils, Harmony's outer hull integrity at 90% and falling. They watched as the void entity began to envelop the Harmony, drawn by the intense biological energy she was radiating. The ship's modified systems were performing perfectly, making her seem like a feast too tempting to resist. Hull integrity at 60%. Ventu continued. 40%. The entity is. It's pulling her into its core. Wait for it, Chen muttered, her hands gripping the tactical console. Wait until it fully commits. The Harmony's hull blazed with light as the void entity's entropic field began to break down her structure. But instead of fighting it, she allowed herself to be drawn deeper, carrying her lethal cargo toward the creature's heart. 20% hull integrity. Ventu's voice shook. The entity's core is opening to absorb her completely. Now, Chen commanded, Harmony, initiate final protocol. Through his neural link, now stretched thin by distance, Zarek felt the Harmony's last conscious act. Her remaining systems activated at once, turning her entire biological matrix into a conduit for the antimatter reaction. As the void entity's core embraced her, seeking to consume her essence, she turned herself into a weapon. The explosion was unlike anything they had ever seen. The antimatter reaction, amplified by the Harmony's biological energy and channeled through the void entity's own entropy field, created a cascade of destruction that started at the creature's heart and radiated outward. The entity's core is collapsing. Tylra reported, her bioluminescence flaring with excitement. The chain reaction is spreading through its entire structure. The massive void creature writhed in space, its organized form breaking apart as the explosion rippled through it. The entropy field that had made it so deadly now worked against it, carrying the destruction to every part of its being. All ships, full power to shields. Chen ordered. Brace for shockwave. The void entity's death throes sent pulses of chaotic energy through space. Ships rocked and systems flickered, but they held together. When the energy storm finally cleared, where the mighty creature had been, there was nothing but scattered particles, already beginning to disperse into the void. Silence fell over the bridge as the crew processed what they had witnessed. The Harmony was gone, her sacrifice taking the greatest threat they had ever faced with her. But in her final moments, she had proven something profound about the nature of life itself. Your ship, Chen said into the quiet. She didn't just save us. She showed us the way forward. Zarek turned to her, questioning. What do you mean? Think about it, Chen explained. The Void Eaters were entropy incarnate, the opposite of life. We couldn't beat them with weapons or technology alone. It took a living ship, choosing to sacrifice herself, to show us that life itself is stronger than entropy. That consciousness, whether human or confederate, biological or technological, is more powerful than chaos. The sensor readings were already confirming it. The scattered remains of the void entity showed no signs of reforming. The threat was truly over. Captain, Ventu called out suddenly. I'm receiving transmissions from Confederate space. The news of the victory is spreading. But there's more. The Confederate Council is convening an emergency session. They're calling for a formal alliance with humanity. It's about time. Chen smiled. We've spent too long hiding in the shadows, fighting secret wars. Perhaps now we can all step into the light together. Zarek looked out at the starfield where the Harmony had made her last stand. His ship was gone, but her legacy would live on. She had proven that the greatest strength came not from weapons or defenses, but from the willingness to sacrifice for others, a lesson that both humans and the Confederacy had learned together. The Council will want to study human military technology, he noted, to prepare for future threats. And we'd like to learn more about your biological ships, Chen replied. Imagine what we could accomplish together. Ships with the strength of human engineering and the adaptability of Confederate biotechnology, a true fusion of our capabilities. As the combined fleet began their journey home, Zarek felt a new sensation through his captain's neural link. Not from the Harmony this time, but from the other Confederate ships nearby. Their organic systems were resonating with something new, not fear of the humans anymore, but curiosity, respect, and hope. The void entity had tried to destroy them by turning their differences into weaknesses. Instead, it had forced them to turn those differences into strength. Humanity's warrior instincts had found their true purpose not in conquest, but in protection. The Confederacy's peaceful nature had proven to be not a weakness, but a source of profound courage. Together, they had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, not unchanged, but perhaps changed for the better. As the fleet made their way back to Confederate space, they carried with them not just victory, but the dawn of a new era, one where the combined strength of humanity and the Confederacy would stand ready to face whatever new challenges the galaxy might bring.